Well, if she doesn't, it's all good. It's all good. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Take a Stand online conference. This is an extraordinary event where I am interviewing 35 amazing women who each have a story of triumph over trauma. Now, these stories can be a little bit hard-hitting. They can be raw. So I really just want to remind you to get the support you need. Reach out to your friends, have conversations with your family, reach out to your doctor if you need to, or if you feel that you are spiraling out of control, make sure you head on down to the emergency services at your local hospital. There is no shame in doing that. It is all part of the trauma recovery and healing journey. Most of us have done it at some point in our lives. So please don't feel any shame if you need to reach out and get the help it is that you need. So welcome, YouTube family. Thank you very much for coming back and listening to these incredible stories. If you're not a member of the channel, please do consider joining. This channel is all about living life trauma-free. Just click the subscribe button, the notification bell, give us a thumbs up. And if you have a question for Jo, please leave it in the comments box below, and she will obviously be more than happy to answer it for you. So it's great to have you here, Jo.
Thank you. Really an honor to be here.
And Jo is just about to release a book, which is called Transmute Trauma, Discover Who You Truly Are. She is one of the co-authors of 5 of authors, of which I'm also one. We are both co-authors in the book. And that will be coming out. The official release date is the 16th of this month, and we are both very excited about it. It's been a while in the making, Jo, hasn't it?
Yes, it is, but it's well worth it because of the purpose we're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to hear about your story of triumph over trauma.
You know, I was thinking really hard about this, trying to make up my mind. How do you approach something so big and put it in a thumbnail? My trauma was ongoing throughout my life, starting at a very young age. And I decided that maybe the way I could touch people's hearts and understand that you can really, really triumph over it, and you can really create a new, better life, more than you ever imagined, would be to talk into when I was 12 years old and decided I couldn't do it anymore. I had trauma at home. I was bullied at school. My teachers were unsupportive. I was very alone in trying to cope and trying to function and trying to know, how do you manage things that are way above you when that has become normal and chronic? And I finally decided I had had enough. I had something happen on a particular day, and it just became too much. I decided that was the day I was going to end it. It was, in a way, for me, kind of a form of a boundary. I wasn't good at boundaries because mine had been taken away when I was so young. And I felt like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I do know I can do one thing. And so I tried to take my life. It didn't work, obviously. And that was 12. And 7 years later, we were talking about raw details. I was nearly murdered, strangled and raped, and left devastated, and also, once again, no support. And I did learn something that day, that night. I learned that I wanted to live. And there was a transition there that happened to me that I think is really important for people to understand. Those feelings of not wanting to make it, they're temporary. And if you push through, you get to a better place. And I knew that I would be able to use that time as a way to help myself and others in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously know your story because I've read your chapter of the book, and I would really encourage people to get a copy of the book and to read Jo's story, because it it shows you how complex trauma can be and the many different levels and experiences of trauma an individual can go through. So as you said, Joe, it wasn't just one incident, it was a number of things that happened over a long period of time that you were experiencing.
It was literally, well, I do a lot of work in the fight in human trafficking, and I was basically being groomed by family members. We'll just say it that way. And I got through that and past my experience at 12. I became a Christian right after that other experience, and began using that as part of the way that I was healing, but still experiencing other things with guys, other rapes, molestations, and just getting through that whole thing. It is very complicated, and there is not always just an incident, but even one incident can slam you and put you into a spiral. And there's no shame in that. Shame is something that holds you back, but it is not your friend.
It's someone was talking yesterday about shame and guilt belonging to other people and not necessarily belonging to you. It's something that someone has given you, put on you.
Mm-hmm. Man, that is absolutely accurate. The shame that you get after these experiences is because of something someone did to you. You do not need to own that. It is not you. You are a perfectly imperfect human being, full of potential. You don't have to own shame. Shame was like hanging out with me for years. I couldn't seem to shake it. It was always there saying, but, and I just finally got to a point where I realized, no, this isn't me. This isn't on me. And I was able to move past that. A lot of growth and healing, a lot of just needing to really look into who I was as a child, who was I meant to be, and who could I be, and not take that with me.
What do you think was the I was going to say the straw that broke the camel's back, but I'm not sure how appropriate that is. Was there something that you suddenly thought, I've had enough now, that's it, something's going to have to give, something's going to have to change?
Wow. Yes, there is a very significant experience. I had many times tried to say, okay, I'm done, but I couldn't figure that out. And my second husband was a narcissist, and he began joking about murdering me. And I began having the nightmares from when I was 19 all over again for the first time in decades. And I became terrified, not only for myself, but for my children, because we were in a vulnerable place. And my heart was breaking because I knew my choices had hurt them. And I was heartbroken, but I also became genuinely afraid to my core. And I said, okay, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is too much. My body was affected. Everything was affected. It was like physically, mentally, emotionally, it slammed me to the core. So I began the process.
It's quite incredible considering how much you have been through, that you were able to, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, were able to see some light at the end of the tunnel and a direction that you could head into to start moving forward in a different way.
Well, for me, there are some big things. I've been through the John Maxwell team coaching, and we do a lot of personal growth. And one of the things that we often talk about is the fact that we have this potential, that we can move on. And we have to look at ourselves. We have to look inside ourselves. But we also talk about why, our why. And when we can dig deep enough and understand what our why is, we can conquer anything. And my why was because of my children, number one. I wanted them to have a better life than I was giving them. I wanted them to have a better mom than I was giving them. My other reason was because I believed God had a better plan for me that I was allowing myself to go through. And the other reason was because I I always believed after my experience at 19 that God would redeem it and bring something out of it. And in doing so, something would come out of it. And I had begun work in the fight to end human trafficking, and it became my other why. So I have three whys that are very strong and potent in my life. And then there is, I wanted something better for me. I felt that I deserved better. And I wanted to fight for the little girl who no one had fought for.
What's with the work that you do with the human trafficking? What is it actually that you do within that role?
My main thing is that I build awareness. I am constantly working to get the word out. I do it on multiple levels. But there are two other things. I'm also on the board for SAFE, which is a nonprofit organization that believes in holistically helping survivors. We believe that you can't just hit one area, you need to hit it. And we also believe that it needs to be long term, which is one of the reasons I decided to be part of that board. When they told me that, I was like, yes, that's what I believe in. And the other thing that I do is I really like to be there as be the change advocate. So what I mean by that is when someone wants to truly change their life and be a real change in the world for humanity, then I want to walk alongside them and show you how they can truly do what they need to do. Impact, effectiveness, and any healing that they need is important.
So you've turned everything, flipped it on its head, and moved into the space of being a mentor, which is incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. I love it because when I can see someone rise up and become more, it's just wonderful to see them. And it isn't me doing it. It is them. You cannot help another person unless they are ready to be helped.
Yeah, absolutely. They have to be willing to walk along with you. I do think we do hold a space for people. We do create a container for them to breathe into. We hold them for a certain period of time until they're ready to move out of that container, until they've, when they feel safe enough to move forward. Oh, I've just got to check my power. Jo, with the work that you do in the human trafficking, is there a common theme that you see in people's experiences that just shows its head time and time again? I'm just going to duck down and just make sure my power is on. So if I disappear, don't worry, I'm still listening.
Yeah. Don't go too far.
Yeah.
So the answer to that question is, for survivors, they come from a place where they were in some form groomed or traumatized the majority of the time. Now, there is a false teaching out there that this only happens to people who've been through trauma. And that is actually not the case. There are some big advocates out there that are survivors that were people who had very beautiful, wonderful family relationships and, everything that we all think, wow, that's the life. And one of them I know became a model. She thought it would help her with her college career. She had big plans. The modeling agency was only a cover, and she was kidnapped. This happens. There's a lot out there that we are not opening our eyes to. Another thing that I see is the belief that, you're going to help this person. Survivors don't want you to say, help me, because they have to help themselves. And they understand that they have to be ready. It is common for a survivor, someone who's rescued, as we call it, comes out, and they'll go back in 7 or 8 times before they really come out completely. So the reason being that we have neurological grooves in our body, and we know what is comfortable and what we know what to do. To come out of it, there's a lot of things you have to face. That it happened would be one of them. That it's going to be hard would be another. You feel like you've already been through too much and you're surviving, and that might be a safer place right now for you. So you have to get past that. And that's why holistically, long-term is a much better way to go for these people. And it is not just girls. Boys are also even increasingly being trafficked.
When we say trafficked, what does that actually mean? Because I think we've all got our own view of what trafficking actually means, but I'm not sure, when I think about it, I'm not sure I really understand the full context and the meaning of it.
Well, it's force, fraud, or coercion. That is what. So if someone is making money in any form from you, so it can be labor trafficking, i.e., you are picking vegetables. It doesn't matter what it. There's a lot of, in the chocolate industry, for instance, they've got little kids going out there with machetes, and they're going out to bring in the cocoa. It's horrible what they put these kids through, and they nearly keep these people starved on it. There is another form of trafficking, as once again, we go back to force. They go into villages and they steal the children and make them soldiers. So that's it. Then, of course, most people are understand the sex trafficking. However, what they don't understand is they often think that, strip clubs, for instance, is huge trafficking. They assume that these girls want to be there. And if they ask them, they would say yes. But they have to survive, and they will do what they are told to do, because if they do not, they are abused, they are starved, they do whatever it takes to keep these people in line.
I listened to, it was a while ago actually, it was an interview with someone, I think from the FBI, and he was talking about, it was quite hard to get my head around. He was talking about these big football games they have in the States, and how people are shipped in during the football games.
Yeah.
In buses, they're brought in bus loads.
Yeah.
And then the people who are watching the game go out during the game, do whatever it is that they want to do, and then go back into the game. And then these buses of people are taken back to wherever they came from. It just blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind.
Prevalent. It is so prevalent. And unless we, as a society, humanity, starts saying, no, this is wrong, and starts taking actions, and they don't have to be big, but they have to be something, then I believe we're saying, okay, this is okay. It's not affecting me.
Okay. Yeah.
But it is affecting you. And there's a lot of wonderful people out there who've given their lives, Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi. There's so many people who have given their life for good causes because they knew that it was affecting all people.
Why do you think that it's not common conversation when it's so prevalent?
Because it's an uncomfortable subject, and because many of the people involved have a lot of money, and many of them are in a position to affect the silence.
That's scary, isn't it?
It's an
I think,
that's an unpopular thing to say, but that's the way I feel.
well, if it is what it is what it is. I'm pretty sure we had this conversation when we first met, and it's pizza is coming to mind. That it's just as easy to dial a child than it is to
Order
dial a
pizza.
pizza. Was it something like that?
Yes. It was in a documentary I was watching. He was a predator, a buyer. And he said, it is just as easy for me to get a kid as it is to get pizza.
That's terrifying.
It is terrifying. And when he says kids, the average age is 12 to 14, but averages mean above and below. And they take them very young, and they are literally can pick what they want. You can say, I want a 12-year-old. I want a 10-year-old. They can say it, and the guy or girl trafficker will look for that. If they don't have it, they'll find it.
Shocking.
Yeah, it's a business for the traffickers, and we have to take that very seriously. It's what would you call a tax-free business?
Yeah. And obviously when you have that much money involved, you're always going to find a supply and demand, aren't you? It's going to be never ending, because it's not been shown to be wrong. It's not something that the force is looking at or dealing with, which is odd. I've used this word a lot during this event. Odd. I'm not sure odd is really what I mean, but it's difficult to get your head around, knowing that those types of things are even worse actually than they were when I was young. Much worse.
It's incomprehensible. It really is, to wrap your brain around that depth of sickness. I just always want to get the word out that there are things we can be doing. I'm working on a plan now to be able to help consumers with their shopping, something that I'm trying to develop, so that I'm giving people who don't want to do what I'm doing. I don't expect everyone to drop their lives and do what I do, but I do hope and pray that people will do something, because there are lots of little things we can do.
What are some of the little things we can do then?
Well, if people are willing to learn a little bit more, they can actually put the anti-human trafficking number, the hotline, in their phone. If they see things that they're suspicious, and they do just kind of like what you would normally do. If you saw a robbery, you'd want to know what color the person's hair was. You'd want to know details, license plate, those things. And you can call this number, and they'll walk you through ways that you can help. That's a simple way. Another simple thing is pick one thing, pick two. Coffee and chocolate. I'm always looking to make sure that they're fair trade. I'm looking for ethically sourced. Ethically sourced sometimes gets a little bit more into the ecology, so you kind of have to really look into what does that mean for that company. But you'll find that those simple things, I refuse to buy coffee unless it is fairly traded, things like that. You just start doing it. That becomes who you are. Little simple things like that. Pick an item, pick two.
Yeah, so it's a conscious decision in terms of how you want to. I mean, it's interesting that I stopped eating meat about 2 years ago. I don't know what happened. I was a big meat eater before then. I used to eat meat I used to love my spare ribs. That's how much I love meat. I've been gnawing on them, trying to get every bit of meat off them. But I don't know, something happened, and I just it must have been all the work I was doing around trauma, and I suddenly thought, I do not want those animals to suffer and go through any type of trauma.
So you're a real vegan.
I'm not vegan. I eat fish.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I don't do milk and I don't do eggs. I'll occasionally eat chicken, occasionally, but not very often. But I will eat grass-fed beef. If I think it's been lived in a field and had a good life, I can eat it, but I can't eat factory. I can't eat anything that's bought in that's lived in a factory. I just can't. I can't do it anymore.
It's
I guess
hard
it's
to realize what happens to them.
I can't believe I had my mind closed for such a long time. But it reminds me of that, where you just have to make a connection with actually what is the reality of how this is being sourced. What's really going on? How is this chocolate being made? How is this coffee being made? In terms of exploitation in Thailand, besides the sex trade and all the horrific stuff that goes on around that, is that I eat local fish, but there's human trafficking on the fishing boats here. You know, that just outside my window there will be people that are being trafficked on the boats and be
Heartbreaking,
kept as
isn't it?
slaves. Yeah, it's hard to get your head around in this day and age that it's happening to the degree that it is happening. So I make conscious choices that, you know, don't eat meat, only eat locally sourced fish. And it's just raising that sense of awareness and making, I don't know is it a moral decision? What would we call it? A conscious choice?
Well, I think we have to make conscious choices, but we have to do it based on our moral beliefs and desires to live on a higher plane, to choose to be bigger and better. You have to rise above mass. It's a choice, and it takes work.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. When talking about the sexual exploitation and trafficking, what are some things that people can keep an eye out on? What is something that they could just keep in their mind where they could think, Joe said that's what I need to look out for. What's something that they could just is an easy.
For parents, number one, you need to be checking on your kids' computers, laptops, cell phones. Social media trafficking has increased dramatically. It really skyrocketed. I'm not going to give you stats because I don't have them on the top of my head, but we're talking hundreds of percent, not even just 100%, hundreds of percent.
Wow.
During COVID, during the lockdown, people were at home. Kids were at home. Guys were getting on the internet. Kids were getting on the internet. It for them, it's like a candy store, and they play a game and they work really hard at it and they get what they want. That's the way the game works. So we need to monitor our children. And if you have kids, that is a huge area right now to be super all over. And if your kids feel uncomfortable, just try to work really hard on having a relationship with them and explain to them, I'm not trying to get in your business, but there's people out there who are trying to hurt you. And I just want to help you understand so that you can protect yourself. And it's my responsibility while you're with me to protect you also.
Brilliant. The number you were talking about, if you could,
I can give it
when
to
I
you.
do the video.
I don't have it memorized, but you know what? I can do that for you.
I can also drop it below this video as well.
Human trafficking hotline. 1-888-373-7888. Got it in my phone.
Brilliant. So that's definitely one thing that people can do is they can put that number in their phone. And if they've
Yeah,
got
they see
any,
something suspicious.
yeah,
You
just
know, you
report
see
it.
some little kid and they're with someone and something doesn't seem, trafficking victims will not look you in the eye. They won't be using their own money because they don't really have money. They may have 2 or 3 cell phones. There's all kinds of little things that you can learn. Shared Hope International is I'm an ambassador with them, and they have lots of information for people who are just getting started and they're trying to figure things out. You can learn so much on that site.
What was that called? Sharon Hope?
It's sharedhope.org. And they have tons of information.
Yeah, I'll put the link below the video as well so people can access that. Yeah, I mean, the more that we can raise awareness, the better. I think the more we can get the message out there, the better.
Absolutely.
If looking back now with all the insight that you have and everything that you've been through, what is it that you would say to your younger self?
There's 2 things I would say to myself. I'm feeling like emotional about that thought, but it would be that you're worth it, and heal first.
Thank you. I see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story, Jo. I really appreciate it. And also all the work that you're doing around human trafficking. It's so important. I just wish more people were talking about it because it's an epidemic. I've been saying this repeatedly through this entire event that, it's why we've all come together ultimately, is to raise awareness of what's happening in people's lives, because this is actually common. These aren't unusual stories. These are really common stories that aren't being shared, that aren't being spoken about. So I just want to say thank you very much for having the strength to share your story and also the work that you're doing around human trafficking.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm honored to have an opportunity to really speak to people, and just really praying that I touch someone's life today.
Thanks, Jo. Take care.
Thank you.